G'day legends, I hope you're all fantastic. We're checking out the OTTO Audio 1111 plugin today, which promises boutique high gain tones for your DAW. It's something that feels simultaneously really familiar while also being a departure from what a lot of other companies are doing in the high gain amp simulator plugin space. It's not really based on a specific amp model. Reed at OTTO Audio explained to me over a series of emails the motivation for this, where essentially he wanted to recreate the experience of having two high gain full stacks in stereo, the kind of punch and thump you get out of that, as well as just being really interested in boutique high-end amplifiers and the type of mods that you can make to them and the way you can dial them in. So let's take a very quick look at the layout in here. Then I'm going to showcase the double tracker function in a little track. We'll dive into some tones and I'll give you something that's maybe a little bit out of the box from what you would expect for a kind of high gain plugin that's definitely catering to metal players. So, you know, at the get-go, looks pretty familiar. You have familiar amp controls over here. You can have your presets down here. You've got input and output levels. You can set up this to run in mono, in stereo, or there's a really interesting mono to stereo mode, which features the double tracker that I was talking about. The double tracker in this is really, really good. You've got a punch control and a power amp control that you can enable or disable. If you click on here, you get access to the back panel, which essentially I think of as like a mod shop in here. So you've got this mod control, which is very subtle, but does change the feel of the amp quite a bit. You've got a punish, a plus 10 dB, and a low control. There's a built-in gate. You can select between EL34, 6L6, and KT88 power tubes, and they all sound and feel different. And then the section that I'm kind of the most impressed with, you've got controls for bias, sag, negative feedback, and this snarl control in here. So you can really customize this under the hood. There's also the ability to select between a bunch of different cabinet IRs. Each of them has a resonance control over here where you can bypass the built-in IRs, but this is one of those amp sims where I feel like the IRs are part of the overall experience. You can also select between different preamps, and I think there's 13 different models in here. So you've got the 11, 11, 11, 11 model in there. You've got stuff like 91, 92, black, War Y'all, you know, this is going to be like Metallica, Pantera, Dual Rectifier, 5150. Then there's a bunch of other models in here, like Low Throne, probably a HM2 inspired thing. There's a lot of stuff that isn't just, you know, Tube Screamer into modded Marshall or 5150 with a V30 cab and an SM57. So I'll just very quickly give you an example of my PRS in Drop C, where I've got this set up at the moment. You can select between cabinets by clicking on here or on the back. Then there's this control here, which is a little bit hidden, which lets you select between different impedance curves. So between the different preamp models, between the kind of under the hood amp mod shop, and between those impedance curves, this packs a lot in here. I really like the way this is laid out as something that's just kind of like, hey, you like distortion? Well, we'll give you a bunch of different ways to get the sound and the feel. So I'll let you hear it in mono, then the mono stereo, and just play a little bit. Then we'll hear Rust with the double tracker. Okay, let's hear those settings with the double tracker on there over the backing track for Russ. I haven't done anything to these guitars, no post EQ, no doubling. Have a listen. That's pretty impressive. While it's not going to replace actually double tracking guitars when I'm recording, if I just want to play along with a nice big chunky tone and have that stereo spread and not have to use another plugin, I like it. And if you just want to lay down an idea really quickly and not worry about having to double it as well, I think that's going to be a great little utility tool in here. Let's hear the different preamp models now. All right, that is so much fun. You can just see how it's like placing you in a particular kind of tonal or textural territory with the core preamp sounds, and then you can just kind of fine tune them, not even using the onboard EQ. Once you've got that where you like it, it's pretty much going to work. But using these back panel controls like the power tube selection, I feel like Punish needs to stay on the whole time, the little mod on there. And then playing with like the negative feedback and the bias, you know, you can hot bias it or cold bias it in here, add more negative feedback to kind of make it behave a bit better. It's stupid fun, and I didn't even play around with the different cabs or the impedance curves. Let me grab a 7-string and I'll show you how powerful the impedance curve modeling is in there. And I think it's super cool because that is one of the things that I love about my Axe effects. It gives you that authentic impedance curve modeling in there. I'm not really aware of anything else that does it. One thing that I didn't mention on there was this amplitude control. Like a real amp, if you change the bias, the amount of output you get is going to change. So if I take this from where it is, which is kind of hotter on the bias, and I bring the bias down, it's going to be quieter, but I can correct that with the amplitude control. A similar thing is going to happen with the negative feedback control as well. So if you're using this, just keep in mind that amplitude parameter is kind of going to help you normalize things. So I'll let you hear it with the feedback all the way down, and then I'll turn it up. The kind of mod control on there, to my ears, it just kind of makes everything a little looser sounding. I have no idea what it's actually meant to be doing. And I think that's one strong suit of this particular plugin, but probably also one criticism as well is there's a few things on here where, you know, they're just switches and knobs and things that you can turn, and you can use your ears and decide what you like. The kind of amp nerd in me that really admires the way this plugin was made kind of goes, I'd like to know what that actual function is in the circuit. But small criticism right there. And again, been using this mono to stereo double tracker thing the whole time because I'm just playing guitar here in the studio with the monitors up quite loud, and it's quite enjoyable. So out of these preamp models, the black one is really enjoyable. That Super Collider is awesome. And I really like the low throne for like that kind of HM2 grindy style thing on there. Of course, you don't just have to do like grindy stuff with an HM2. I really like it as a fuzz style thing, so I thought it might be fun to hear this with a Strat with some EMGs doing like a Pink Floyd style thing. I've just added a little bit of FabFilter Timeless in post. Again, no processing on the guitars except for that little bit of delay in there. Using the mono to stereo feature, this is what it sounds like. That's pretty cool and pretty unexpected. One big selling point for this is the fact there are those different impedance curves and stuff like the sag control to change up the overall feel in there. So I'll let you hear some of those. I've just been using impedance curve number 1 for the whole video so far. We'll also hear some different cabinets now. So there's going to be different levels of kind of scoopiness and mid-heaviness in here. And again, it's all going to depend on the sound that you're going for. You're probably going to end up finding 1 or 2 impedance curves and 1 or 2 cabs that you really like the sound of. The strength with the cab selection here, again, is that it's just cab 1, cab 2. You don't know what it is. You don't know what mics, what cabinets, what the chain is. Again, you might see that as a criticism if you're used to some modern plugins which give you that kind of graphical UI to move a virtual microphone around on. I'll let you hear some of the cabs, but first some of the impedance curves, again with cab 1. they basically get more and more mid-forward, kind of flattening out on there. So if you were going for that, HM2 style grind thing, or you wanted a solid state death metal tone out of there, this gives you a lot of control over there that you wouldn't necessarily get out of a real solid state amp. And, the more scoop stuff is more fun on its own, but you may find some of those more mid-forward impedance curves are a little handier. Now, with the cabs, you can click here and either just kind of scroll through them. There's 22 cabs, or you can roll through them over here. And again, I've been using this resonance control. I might let you have a listen to what happens when you kind of mismatch these. It plays into that doubler effect and the idea that the creator here has come up with of like using, stacks of boutique amps, and, different cabs are going to have different resonances. So I'll first just turn the resonance on one of them up and we can hear that. Then I'll roll through some different cabinets. Pull up stumps there. Just some closing thoughts on here. I really like the way this is laid out. I like that this brings together so many different classic enjoyable sounds when it comes to boutique high gain, and it makes them really easy to not just select between them, but to kind of fuse them in there. The fact that you can change the preamp, the fact that you can change the power section, the power tubes in there, the different mods, the cabinets in there, I think is a really cool approach to doing a high gain plugin. The marketplace is full of plugins that kind of just do one amp. Another dual rectifier plugin, another 5150 plugin, another JCM 800 with a few mods in there. I think this is the way to go, and massive, massive respect to Reed at OTTO Audio, a one-person show putting this together, for kind of pouring their heart and soul into this. You can kind of hear and feel the love in the way this is laid out. My only criticisms would be with the cabinet selection. Some of the cabs sound wildly different to one another as you're scrolling through. It's not a very gradual experience, and selecting some of the preamp models in there, there are some big volume jumps in there. So in future revisions, it might be nice to kind of either have them laid out slightly differently or have some more normalization going on. The other thing that I think would be a cool addition to this in here would be with the impedance curves. There's like a minor issue in here, and it probably runs counter to what they're trying to do, would be having some kind of like visual representation of what's going on. This is a really easy to use plugin, but it's also a pretty nerdy plugin as well with the amp mods under the hood. So it would be nice to have some kind of visual representation of what's going on, maybe just as an option. So you don't have to have it on there. Again, I do admire the overall aesthetic in here and the way this kind of feels like more than the sum of its parts. I think that's the best thing I can say about this, is that, yeah, you do have different cabs, you have different preamp models, lots of ways to tweak this, but you know, it's not just a list of high gain amps kind of chucked together. This lets you take those starting points, lets you fuse them together and create something all your own. Also, the double tracker, as we heard, is very, very good in there. I like the way that's designed. I'd like to see this for like different types of amps. Like imagine an Edge of Breakup collection amp where you can get classic Fender, Dumble, and Vox style tones, and you know, have them modeled with and without classic pedal pairings with them. The same thing for like old 70s things. Imagine like, you know, JTM 45 pushed with a treble booster without having to have a separate treble booster pedal in there. It's just like the sound immediately, or a Sun Model T with a fuzz pedal, or, you know, JCM 800 with an SD1 already baked in. You know, they've got things in here like this low throne. Definitely sounds like some kind of HM2 pushing a clean amp, which I really, really like. It's not just 5150 dual rec modded Marshall. There's some creative choices in here. I dig it. I really, really enjoyed doing this video. I really enjoyed chatting to Reed from OTTO Audio about the kind of process behind this. Hopefully I will be able to get them on the Gear podcast and they can talk about this creation process in their own words, because I find it very, very curious, and it's something I would like to see more of in the future. Having said that, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this plugin. Is it something that you've tried? If not, you can get a free trial. If you've done the free trial and you want to buy it, there is a discount code, which I'll include in the comments and the video description. Otherwise, have a great day. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Cheers.